you need me to shift that blind?
Yeah, if you just pull it down, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so how are you keeping?
Not bad, thank you. I'm all on my own at home for a change.
A good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it means the mad wife with the vacuum cleaner and the headphones on isn't coming in and bashing me around the ankles.
Okay.
She tends to undertake a cleaning during the day, and my room isn't allowed to be missed.
Sure. I think we've all become more tolerant of these interruptions that happen. A couple of months ago, well before lockdown, there was a guy on the BBC News, and he was interacting with the newscaster, and his son came in and sort of popped his head around the door, and you could see him kind of doing this, pushing him away, and then his hand came in, probably the mum, and just pulled him back. But I think we've all become much more tolerant of that now these days.
Yeah, it's very much the normal. There was a thing on the BBC News about some photographs that had been taken, something to do with the royals and portraits. And one of them was a dad working from home with his back to the children. The children were all over the floor. The place was a complete mess, and Dad was still in his pajamas. It told a picture.
That's cool. So, well, first of all, thank you very much for agreeing to do this, for completing the survey and agreeing to do this. As you're aware, what I'm trying to do is just understand a little bit more about the challenges that people face. So you're one of a good number of people that responded. So would you like to just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your company, before we get into the kind of challenges of leadership, please?
Well, my name's Simon Delaney. I'm a chartered building surveyor, and I'm one of the directors of Delaney Marlin Partnership Limited, which is a small building surveying practice based in the Humber region. And we undertake things like house surveys, and we also look after things like Beverley Minster. So we have a vast range of work. Some of that is client to clients, some of that is client to public. It's been a strange challenge because we're a small team. We're used to seeing each other every day, and there's only 3 of us permanently in the team, as well as the wives backing up with accounts and marketing and that kind of thing. From our small office, we're now into smaller offices, and each of us in our respective dining rooms, which isn't too bad, but because you don't see a face and you can't see the reactions on a face, we find that like I just sent Alex some corrections on a big survey we did in Gainsborough, and you can't get the tone. So I need something doing. I don't want to come across that I can be in the big angry boss. And good thing Alex is fairly laid back, so he doesn't take it that way. And I'm just trying to point him in a direction. But if it was in the office, I'd have probably chucked something at him, hit him on the back of the head, and just said, "You missed these. Get on with it." And it'd have been taken how it's supposed to be taken, as in, this is a little bit of constructive criticism about what you produced. So those things are really, really hard to gather. And obviously at the start we had to furlough Alex because our whole residential side completely dropped off. And then we couldn't furlough ourselves because we both had retained fees. So me at Beverley Minster, and there's a big HLF project to replace part of the roof there at the minute. So I was constantly involved with bits and pieces around that. And Kevin's got a development monitoring project in Grimsby for 24 houses and some flats. So he was having to go there once a month. So because of the rules, there's not much we could do about finance. So keeping an eye on the finance, keeping Kevin and I busy, it's quite difficult over that initial lockdown period. Did lots of training. I've done enough training for the next 4 years, apparently. Some of it was great and free, which it never usually is. And some of it was pants. People trying to do training and not being trainers. It's a skill. It's not something you can just do.
Yeah, yes, I can relate to a lot of that. So I've personally been doing a lot of kind of CPD and development of my own stuff online. But you're absolutely right. One event which pre-COVID was due to take place in a big room, 50 attendees, etc., for 2 hours. They quite rightly responded to COVID and said, "Okay, we'll put this online," but they didn't adjust it at all. It was just the same thing but online, and it was 2 hours, and it was dire. So I learned a lot from that. But from that, from a leadership perspective, I'm picking up here that communications was an issue, and it's a theme which other people have reflected back to me as well. So the importance of actually physically being in a room with somebody or being present with somebody, you can pick up so much. And one conversation I had was, the individual now recognizes the importance of all that, whereas before he kind of just took it for granted. So, you know, when you say you would throw things at your employee, I know you're being metaphorical there, but in exactly the same way, he said, "Oh, okay, so when I want things doing, the way I get things done is I normally go into the big office, get everybody's attention, give them a good brief, ask them a pause for questions, they get on with it, and I judge." He says, "I can't do any of that through the screen." So
No, and you don't normally chat through things because not everybody gets everything right first time. In fact, the amount of people that do that is very, very small. So you'd have these conversations as a matter of course, and you'd probably get away with a lot just within the office banter, you know, but that banter isn't happening. So I think I've had in 12 weeks 2 telephone conversations with Alex. Obviously, he's going out and surveying with Kevin because I'm having to remain locked down and distanced. So they're going every couple of days out on a survey. I was going to say together, but they're going in separate cars. They're keeping quite separate for all the rules we have. So they're having those conversations, and I'm catching up with Kevin at the minute once a day over the telephone, and off the back of some of the meetings we share on video conferencing, we tend to sort of lag behind everybody else and just have a quick face-to-face chat as we're doing now.
Okay. And how are you finding video conferencing as a means of communication?
It's not bad actually. I think it's helped me hone my put brain into gear before mouth starts going skills, because you know, we've known each other a while, and although I've got fairly big feet, they both tend to fit in fairly well between the lips, and it's helped me just to sit back. I found myself just sitting back in my chair and listening, because at the start it was fairly interesting because you see it on the telly. It's a competition to who's got the best set of books behind them, whereas, you know, I've got a mirror, a microphone. It's, you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to dress it up. It's where I am and it's where I work.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been good actually. I've got one for one client, and if we meet, it's in a small cramped room, and the meeting rambles, and it rambles and rambles, and it can be 2.5 hours. But they're not a client that likes to put the hand in the pocket, so they use the 45-minute free Zoom meeting app, and we get everything done in 45 minutes. It's great.
Okay.
You know,
yeah, there's
so
an
you're not
there then.
Well, you lose the niceties to a point, but you get to the point. I think it's a bit like which famous engineer was it? Was it Stevenson? He did all his meetings standing up because he found that people just got to the point. You know, and there's a little bit of chat about if you're on a phone call to somebody, if you stand up, it tends to bring, although they're not clearly stood up, it changes something, and the phone call conversation tends to come to an end.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. It depends who you're ringing, but, you know, I do that every now and then.
Yeah. So this has thrown up a whole new opportunities around dynamics. But you're right. The thing about the phone, stood up phone meetings or stand up meetings, it is a common thing in manufacturing. Certainly, you know, before the shift go on, they have a 10-minute stand up meeting just to get everything very clear. it's so they don't waste time. But absolutely, so we got to adapt that now. I was reading somewhere about digital body language. So previously we would have sat in a room or met at networking and we could take in the whole picture in the periphery of the person. But now all you can see is kind of from my elbows upwards and, you know, your shoulders upwards. So you can't see me drumming my fingers on the table out of potential boredom. So what we've got to do is we've got to be that much smarter about our kind of clues. So this kind of digital body language is something which I'm certainly going to explore. And I think somebody else reflected back to me about listening. Again, when you're face to face or when you've got human contact, you pick up your cues from body language as much as noise. Yeah. Whereas now, particularly if the technology is letting us down a little bit, there might be a slight lag between me finishing and you starting. So we just got to be that much more smarter about how we do things.
Yeah, and it's understanding what you're using as well. You know, you're seeing the same as me. Is when I'm talking, my little box lights up yellow. Well, I was in a meeting with my wife the other day, and she had a really bad grumbly stomach, and we could hear it, and the box kept going yellow, which cut out everybody else. But all it was her stomach, because this meeting was going on a little bit, and it was just before lunchtime. So it's understanding and getting that technology right as well.
Indeed. So throughout this kind of, it's almost been an experiment for some people. This, if I just quantify that, some people I've spoken to, if you like, on a scale there's kind of very down, doom, and I get it. You know, they're up against it. They rely heavily on income from people visiting them, etc., or in their supply chains they've stopped. So for them, it's quite gloomy and they're very, very challenging. And other people, there's one individual in particular who sees this as a massive, massive opportunity for change, to reset the business, to go forward. So if 0 was really gloomy and 10 was absolutely, I'm going to take a massive opportunity to change the business, what number would you say you're on in that scale?
I'll go boring and I'll sit on the fence and say we're somewhere sort of 5 or 6. You know, with me isolating and the guys out doing surveys and our office being reasonably small, we just really still don't know what next. I think we do need to be in the office and spend time in the office, but we might not spend as much time in the office anymore. I really don't know, and I don't think, because we need to touch and feel things, because we had that challenge when we go out and do a survey of a roof, is do we hire a big lifter and get up to that roof and touch it and feel it and get as close to it as we can, or do we hire a drone? You know, and that was that an opportunity? Well, when we found out that actually the drones do not pick up the detail you need to be close to it, I think we're probably edging towards there are some opportunities to maybe work practices and maybe work from home a little bit more. But with regards to, is it going to be an opportunity? We're surveyors, we still need to be very tactile. So we still need to stick our tape measure against something. We still need to touch and feel for cracking and for damp. So probably not so much.
Okay. There's no right and wrong answer. It's interesting because the individual I'm talking about, I can see how and why he wants to take his business the way he wants to take it, and it's not appropriate for some. So if you've been making toilet rolls, for example, and there was a great program, you know, inside the factory with Greg Wallace, how they stepped up, even though they had less staff, they actually created more output whilst observing all the rules and guidance from the government. So if you're a kind of a factory that makes that thing, they have innovated in their own way, but the innovations have arguably been small in some ways, but nevertheless massively impactful. And there are some businesses for whom things aren't going to change, I'll rephrase that. Innovation is not potentially necessary, but I think the right thing to do is to look at it and look at the opportunity and then discount it maybe. And a great example there is you've just given us of the drone. So you thought about that, you tried it, it didn't satisfy your needs, so you're now looking at other things. Okay. So how do you think your leadership has changed during the pandemic?
I think it's definitely work-life balance for the whole team. It's still a struggle at home to put it down and not keep wandering in and just carry on doing a little bit. But instead of being sat at my desk at 5:30 in the morning to get some work done before the phones ring, I'll probably be out for a walk to see the sunrise. So definitely on those kind of things, and then obviously we need to spread that out through our small team, just to make sure that we're being realistic. We're doing the work that we need to do within the day. There's always going to be a little bit to do, but we're not spending massive amounts of time either in the office when nobody else is there or at home working and completing stuff just to turn around things a little bit quicker. Because we do provide a decent service, but sometimes we're probably kicking ourselves in the shins getting there. And I think with the management of people and trying to understand what they're doing at home and how they're working, I think a little bit more tolerance, I think.
That's very interesting. Thank you. So there is evidence, I can't put my finger on it now, but there's quite a lot of evidence to support the notion that people who take breaks or not sort of totally focused on work all the time, they're more productive, although they may seem to maybe spend less time metaphorically chained to their desk. The level of productivity and the quality of work goes up. And certainly creativity goes up in the sense that, and you mentioned walking your dog. I was part of a webinar where this guy was talking about creativity, and he did this. So you know how you get the chat boxes. He asked the delegates. I think there are about 50 delegates. When are you most creative? And a lot of people said things like walking, gardening, in the shower. So they're not actually at work. They're doing something. And he explained that from a biological and a brain point of view. So it's helpful to take the breaks. It absolutely is. And this is where the challenges are going to come in. So the norm used to be we go to work at 9 o'clock and we sit in an office where somebody can see us and supervise us. It's a bit like a grown-up version of school, really, where the teacher's in front. And then we look at our watch and it's 10 o'clock, so we can have a break, and then we have a lunch hour or whatever we do. And then come 5 o'clock, we clock off. All of that's going to get blown out the window now, but a lot of people will not be able to cope with that. And it's the lack of trust or in themselves, a lack of trust in their employees. Because what they're focused on is getting lots of work out of people rather than focused on the result. So if the results can come in, now I do appreciate, because I've spoken to a number of other people in your sort of sector, how very, very important it is. So when people are doing drawings or putting proposals together, that the detail is absolutely right and the deadlines are met. But how you supervise that and how you trust people, that's another challenge. But you've also learned, you've demonstrated that you've learned a different behavior. So the 5:30 thing, instead of crunching your laptop or whatever you do, you're out walking with your dog or seeing the sunrise. Learned behaviors become unlearned. Okay, that's cool. Thank you. So you mentioned about learning about the others and what makes them tick. What are your thoughts on I'm sorry, before I ask this question, I just need to make it clear I'm not asking for an opinion or you to make judgments on the people, but what are your thoughts on how you're going to understand your people more and how to get more or better out of them?
I think we're always watching and expect them to do the same as we do. But if 3 of us sat in the office all did the same thing, it'd be very dull, and we'd miss the things around the periphery that other people have got skills at doing. So the softer skills. So I think watching people work, and because you focus a little bit more on them when they're not with you, which is strange. So instead of looking at them across the office, you're thinking, right, I can see what he's doing now because I can see what files he's putting into the system. I can see what he's doing here, and you're thinking, right, okay, his skills lie maybe not where I thought they were, You know, they're just a little bit over to the right. And I think understanding that a little bit more, I think, has been a good learning, I think, during this period.
Okay, yeah, and I think that probably alludes to one of the questions in the survey, which was given the benefit of hindsight. What, if anything, would you change about your leadership? And your response was improve staff managing skills. So I mean, that staff managing skills is quite broad. And in an ideal world, which clearly we don't live in, but our teams would almost be self-managing. They would understand what is needed by the organisation and yourself, and how you liked it and when you liked it, and they would just get on with it. And it's trusting them to do that. But you as business partner, yourself and Kevin, obviously yours is the big risk because you've got big clients, and it's on your shoulders that the things fall if the stuff isn't right. So there still has to be an element of checking and supervision. Indeed. Managing people's skills, people throw words like empowerment out there, and it's a good thing, but actually doing it and living it is slightly different for the person taking the risk. So somebody once described it, you know, when I did some work with them, we did some diagnostics around the people, the traits, the characteristic types, the communication skills, and various other things. And they said, I'm actually, I've realised I'm asking you to call my children ugly. So he wanted the warts and all view of his business, but not for any bad reasons. What he wanted to do was support people and put people together in a complementary way. And although he described it as a very clunky way of doing it, the outcome was a lot better because people understood a bit more. So that was good. So overall reflections, Simon, of COVID. It's happened. There's nothing we can do about it. So what are your overall reflections about it and then going forward?
I think in respect to the business, I think it's shown the few chinks in the armour that we've got. You know, the few bits that as chartered building surveyors, Kevin and I are probably doing that we should get somebody else to do. And personally, I think for myself and the family, it's actually been okay. There's been a lot of learnings, a lot of understanding what we need to do, and similar with the business. It's just give us a few little pointers. It's been like stepping back and taking a view on what we had and what we have. And I think we'll come out of this fairly well. The surveys still need doing. Obviously, the levels of PPE have changed, and you know, we've had some HMOs that people wanted surveying in the last couple of weeks, and they've been particularly difficult trying to empty properties. But we'll find a way around that, and I think we'll come out of this stronger. I think a lot of people will. Not everybody will. There'll be some people that it's just been too much and too long a period. But everybody will learn from it, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some businesses which clearly we can't look forward and see what's going to happen, but some businesses which were thriving before, and one that comes to mind is hotels or places at higher spaces for meeting rooms. They might be bypassed in terms of, you know, we've got this kind of capability now, and I'm actually wondering how many people who rent office space are thinking, well, do I need that office space, or do I need as much office space? And how much these office parks, these kind of office industrial areas, how much of those are going to suffer? But gladly, I'm hearing, you know, your service will still be needed. So that's a good thing. You know, you've got longevity that way. So in true Darwinian fashion, it's about evolving how you deliver that service, because it'll be about how your clients' needs as well. Now, we haven't touched on your clients yet, but clearly clients are important to you. So have you been keeping in contact with them, and what's been your kind of experience there?
It's been a mixed thing. So a lot of the clients have carried on all the way through, because we have some manufacturing clients, and they've been a little bit frustrated at us because actually we're not happy going into a manufacturing situation when the lockdown's on. There's been a bit of a strange one with regards to who goes, because some clients I tend to deal with, Kevin tends to deal with. But with regards to day-to-day house surveys, since the government gave a thumbs up and said, well, we think you can go and buy, sell houses now, it's been absolutely crackers. And those clients, although we probably usually do one survey for somebody and we never come across them ever again, the feedback we've been getting has been great, because we're speaking more to the seller than we are the actual paying client, because we're having to say, has anybody got COVID, or all those questions. And I'm having to, as the one based at home, ring them the day before and say, right, the survey team's been on. Neither of them have been in contact with anybody. There is no issues from our side. Have you got any issues? And there's a yay or nay. And are you happy to work in this shed for 4 hours while we come and crawl all over your house? We'll be wearing gloves, masks and overshoes. We won't accept a cup of tea off you, but if you offer, thank you for offering. And it's been nice dealing with you. So we're actually on a house purchase. It's like having two clients. So then we're getting the opportunity to, obviously, we've had a few this week where they've said, that's been really thorough. I've sat and watched you do a full survey. Can you give me a price for the house I'm buying? So it's actually given us a business opportunity. And clients have been patient. You know, originally they were really frustrated, people wanting quickly to sell houses, and people actually did carry on moving house, if we're honest, during that period when they should or shouldn't have been doing. But quite a few were like, we want the survey to do it. We can't. You know, there's people that are elderly, but on the whole, people have been really understanding. So it's not been too bad. It's not been too bad. We've had a few clients come back that have been waiting to make decisions, and during that 3-month period, they've suddenly made the decision and want the survey doing. So it's not been too bad with the clients. They've been good.
Yeah, that's a message I hear echoed about the tolerance, if you like, the patience or the understanding. Yes, it's frustrating. And one lady even said to me, she was having conversations, and you know, we talked about how in the room you can pick up on a mood. So through the screen, she was sensing this frustration, and she had a very honest conversation. She labelled it a very honest conversation with the client, whereas previously she's very skilled at picking up on things and very skillful at, you know, sort of talking to you and getting things out of you. It's a coaching background, I guess. But anyway, she said she had the most honest conversation, and it was about this individual's frustration and how he was venting it, not at her, he was just venting. And then when she sort of brought him back down and made him realise, okay, we're all in this kind of together, whatever, you know, cliche you want to use, he was much more, when I say respectful, he wasn't disrespectful to her, he was much more respectful of what was going on, much more realistic about what was going on. And you know, and he said it was not a light bulb moment, but he thanked her and he recognised that part of the challenges he faced was his own emotions, you know, managing his own person, and that how that reflected in the staff and how that reflected with the customers. And he became a calmer person because of that recognition. So yeah, really, really important. Okay, so you touched on family there earlier. Now, a lot of us have been in lockdown, you know, not been able to see our loved ones in some cases because of all the restrictions. And in many cases, it brought people closer together. By that, I mean geographically closer together. I guess in some cases, it may have had a detrimental effect. You know, I mean, we used to have a thing in the army where you go away for 6 months, come back, and it'd be like another honeymoon. And then you do that regularly. And then I know a lot of people, when they left the army, they got divorced because they just couldn't cope with this constant living together. It just couldn't change. So in terms of family, all been okay with you from a leadership dad perspective, I guess?
Yeah, not too bad. One daughter's in Newcastle, one daughter's in York. My family are all in the northwest of the country. My outlaws are all in Newcastle or further north, and we've seen more on video link of my mum and brother, my brother-in-law and his kids than we ever have It's been great. I think it's tied us, geographically it's been horrible, but personally it's tied us all together a lot stronger. It's been good. I had my mum on a video call last night, and she chatted more than she usually does on a normal Sunday evening calls. It's been good. I've enjoyed it, and the Facebook and the social media has meant that I'm in contact with other people, friends and family, just through asking how they are, more than I've ever been.
Yeah, that's so uplifting. That's so uplifting, Simon. Yeah, we've had a few. We've had a few experiments. So we did a kind of a Zoom family conference, and it really worked technologically, but we couldn't communicate because the kids were just running around making lots of noise, running in front of the screen, pulling faces. Yeah. So we thought, well, I know, we'll do this later on in the evening when the kids are in bed, and it was great in that we had the quietness, but the kind of dynamic, noise and the party atmosphere, whatever you want to call it, wasn't there. So it was just like we just sat there talking. Yeah. So it was like we would be having a cup of tea talking. So it was successful that way. But I reflected, for me, it wasn't as much fun, because trying to shout over kids and get their attention, it's just mental. But yeah, and we've been doing some these kind of quizzes, online quizzes that people do, keep together. And it's amazing in the neighbourhood, in the locality, a few people, when you do see them, they talk about it. They say, oh, shall we form a team then? Shall we form an online team? So things that, you speak to your neighbours and you see them, but things like this are kind of bringing you together in weird ways. Okay, right, we covered a lot of ground there, so I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. One last thought from you before I thank you. Any kind of last thoughts, any wisdom that you would share with other leaders in business about anything?
I think it's, don't forget to remember what you've been through in the last 3 months. Someone that we do business with in our office, he's a full-on, works hard, puts lots and lots of hours in. But one nugget he gave to Kevin was, I'm going to have breakfast at home from now on because I enjoy sitting and watching my 2 young sons having their breakfast. Let's remember those things.
Yeah.
And remember how important they are. And kids grow up very, very quickly. Elderly parents get older very, very quickly. Enjoy the time. Work's always going to be there. There's always time for other people.
That's brilliant, and that's a lovely piece of wisdom to end on. So, Simon, thank you very, very much. Obviously, what I'll do before I put this up on anywhere, I'll send a copy to you so you can have a look at it, just so you're happy with it, and we'll take it from there. But let's not be strangers.
All right, Rob, it's good to see you.
And you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.